Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie, and welcome back to another Premier League DraftKings DFS slate breakdown. So, just a two-gamer on our hands, and it's really a kind of relegation battle slate. All four teams are kind of way down there. I think the highest team in this is Brentford, like 15th or something. So it's a real bottom of battle of the bottom, which makes it kind of a weird slate, especially considering it's a two-gamer as well. In terms of the odds, the biggest favorites are Brentford, but not by a ton. So it's pretty even across the board, really. In terms of projected lineups for Luton and set pieces, it's a Doughty monopoly with maybe a little bit of Barkley. For Brentford, it should be Jensen and Mbuemo splitting, although you could maybe see Reguilon hop on a couple, could see Jensen take a larger share than just a 50-50 split. So those are just a couple of things to keep in mind. The other big thing is whether Ivan Toney is in. Missed last game with a slight knock. Frank said he was progressing well, but did not give whether he was fit for this game or not. He could even be straight into the 11 too. So really, we're not really sure on him. His status completely up in the air. I think his status will kind of affect a lot of what to do for this slate. For Sheffield United Burnley, for set pieces, it should be a Hammer and Osborne split. I could maybe see McAtee being the one splitting with Hammer, but my guess would be Osborne. For Burnley, Bruin Larson should take. We might see Cullen maybe. Like they've kind of swapped back and forth. Even last game, I think they both took when both were on the field, which is confusing and hard to really decipher. But Bruin Larson was who I think should take. In terms of prices, the most expensive forward is Ivan Toney. There he is. He's got no designation on DraftKings, which is kind of interesting. He's a big decision here. I think he'll be super popular. I might even put him in my cash score if he starts. In terms of just talent, he's the best player on the slate by probably a wide margin. Then the second most expensive forward is Brian Mbuemo. He's the safest cash option in my opinion. Super solid floor, super solid ceiling on the biggest favorite, although it doesn't really mean much here. But because it's a two game, there's really a lot of elite options, and Mbuemo and Tony are kind of the two guys there. Like there's no one who really even comes close to them. Maybe Doughty, but I'll get to him later. In terms of the other forwards, there's like a Lewis Potter who isn't projected in anything. He's too much for me anyway. McBurney. I'm not really interested in Sheffield exposure for that expensive. I prefer Brereton Diaz over him. I always am a fan of Big Ben Brereton. Or if it was someone cheaper, like a cheaper Sheffield United striker, that'd be perfect, like a Cameron Archer or something. Like 7,600 feels a little much for me for him. Bruin Larson, they're just so infuriating with their Bruin Larson, Josh Cullen situation, or even Josh Brownhill, who could start and he might take too. Just really hard to deal with them. Like Sheffield United's a good matchup, but it's just so hard to pick from Burnley because you're not really sure what anyone's role is going to be. Like Bruno Larson could take nothing, and then he's also carries his sub risk since he usually gets subbed around 60. I know he went 86 last game, but that was definitely an anomaly for what they usually do with him. So I'm a little worried about him slightly. Malpai, if he starts up top, I think that's pretty good value, 6,900. That's not bad. He's not as good as Tony, but he's also a lot cheaper. Everyone else, I'm kind of looking at Odo Bear. I never mind him. He has a little bit of a floor to him, and he goes the distance pretty often. So 6,200, I think, is pretty fair for him. Good Munson. I'd like him more than Brune Larson. He's a guy who takes for sure when in. He gets subbed a lot, but this is the matchup here. So I'd love it if we saw Good Munson in. Carlton Morris. He's a guy who will go 90 no matter what. Look at this. He's done 90 in like 10 straight. And Brentford at home is not that terrible a matchup for Luton. They have that small pitch. It makes games pretty interesting between Luton, whoever they're playing. Usually a lot of goals. So I think there's definitely an argument for a Carlton Morris here, especially for that cheap, which was in projected. Like Townsend for 5,300 isn't that bad here. Guy who gets subbed a lot, but he crosses a pretty decent amount. I don't know if I'd love him over Carlton Morris, considering the minutes advantage and probably goal scoring chance advantage that Carlton Morris has, but 5,300 is not that bad here. Zeki and Dooney, if he played, that'd be perfect. 3,600 is so cheap. I'd happily go there too. Midfielders, Dowdy, he is the number one guy for me in cash. He only had 6 points last game, but that was against Man City, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much. You just expect that 11 points with a ton of crosses. Like it's just what he does. And on a two-gamer, that's hard to get that many points considering there's a lot less options than there would be on an eight-gamer. Makes that just an automatic plug for me. Barkley for 7K on a two-gamer. I can really get behind a Ross Barkley. Just a guy who gets points. I always say it every time I do a breakdown with Luton on it, just a solid option. He just gets there. That's not bad at all, Ross Barkley. Hammer, 600, I think is a little much. Ever since he started splitting set pieces, he's just become so much less desirable, in my opinion. Sheffield never have gotten a ton of set pieces to begin with. Now that we've kind of chopped that number in half available to Hammer, I think it makes him a tough roster considering he's also, I think this is the most expensive he's ever been. 6,600? Yeah, he's never been this much. It was 10K for whatever happened there. I don't know what the heck that was. But 6,600, I think, is just too much for him. I'd rather go like a McAtee or an Osborne. They're both cheaper. They probably don't have the minutes ability that Hummer has. Like he'll just go 90, but I just think he's a little expensive here for cash at least. For GPP, I can get behind him. Like that's a set piece taker when there's only really four teams to pick from, and he's got one of them. Jensen, 6,100. He lacks a little bit of upside, I find usually, but playing loot for 6K, guaranteed set pieces on a two-game slate, I don't think that's that bad. Brownhill, I think he's got to start after scoring a goal last game. I'd be surprised if he wasn't in. Did they have him projected? They didn't, but I just feel like they got to give him a chance considering he saved their bacon last game. So I'd be kind of surprised if we don't see Josh Brownhill in. He's also probably slightly expensive, but I don't know. He's always been a guy who has been pretty solid, especially in the limited minutes he's had. Like, look at that 11 versus Chelsea, 5 and just one half versus West Ham. So I don't mind Brownhill really that much either. Mike Tresor, this is a guy who just doesn't play for whatever reason. I feel like he's got the talent, but for whatever reason, he doesn't work hard in training or whatever issue with him. But if he was in, I'd love that. He's a guy who would take set pieces too. Looking down here, McAtee, I talked about him a little bit. He was at times Sheffield's best attacker. Kind of dropped off a little bit. But if he's in and there's no Osborne, he takes set pieces for sure. I think I'd really like him in that case. I hope you guys can hear my dog in the background being loud. Ben Osborne, 4,500. That's really good play for me. Look at this. He started taking these two games and he's just dropped really solid numbers. You just hope for an 8 for him. That's really good. Those are tougher matchups than against Burnley too. I love Ben Osborne here. I don't know if he's core worthy, but he's the best value on the slate for me. Everyone else, I'm kind of whatever on. Like, I don't anticipate going all the way down here. There's plenty of kind of mid-range guys like your Jensens, like your Osborns that kind of make me not really have to dip all the way down there, even with like a Tony and Embuemo in. Okay. The other way to go is kind of pay up for defenders. Sergio Reguilon, I loved him when he takes set pieces. Now that he hasn't, he's still been like super solid. I've just been a little bit more afraid to play him considering, come on, dog. I've been just a little bit afraid to play him ever since that red card game against Brighton. But he's kind of come out with a bang, like 19 and 18 points back to back. He didn't even have a goal contribution this 18 game. I know it was against Sheffield United, but that's super, super solid for a fullback. 6K is just a super premium on a guy without set pieces is my one worry about him. But depending on your choice of build, especially if there's no Ivan Toney, affords you a lot more salary relief, and that allows you to get up to Region and Defender, I feel like. So that's where I'm kind of at right now. If Ivan Toney is in, I probably don't go Region. If he's out, that probably gives me the opportunity to do that. Like every other defender, I'm kind of whatever on. Like Cabore is always kind of owned, but if he's at wingback, I kind of like that. He plays center back a lot in a back four, and that makes him not quite as good, but he's not a bad option, I'd say. Seeing if Coutinho is projected on the wing, he sometimes plays there. If he was on like right mid or something, I don't mind that. What else is kind of whatever? There's not a bunch of noteworthy defenders here. Trying to find some value. There's a lot of guys injured. Who's at left back for Burnley? Charlie Taylor. Ugh. We saw like Delcroix. He plays left back sometimes. He wouldn't be bad for that cheap. Like there's not a ton here. There's a couple of nice pay ups. Everyone else is kind of level to me, just as whatever. Plug them if you can afford them. We're not a huge gap between any of them. Most of them are just center backs. Even Larucci, I think, is too much for being a fullback. Same with Roslev. I like these kind of top two guys. Everyone else, I'm kind of going just down to punt instead over for cash. For GPP, get behind anyone. In terms of goalkeeper, two gamer, goalkeeper's a crapshoot. No real big favorite here, so no reasoning there. I think Muric will probably be the most popular just because of his logs. They've kind of been crazy, especially Sheffield United is the matchup. I think Muric will be the popular option. Him or Flecken, I could see people going. But yeah, in terms of a core, if Tony is in, I probably go Tony, Embuemo, Doughty. If there's no Tony, I going Doughty and Embuemo in my core for sure. This third slot, I probably go Osborne. 4,500 set taker, solid floor. I probably go that as a core. I might go that as a core even with Tony in, just because gives us a little bit more flexibility. But two gamer, pretty self-explanatory. Play who you want here, really. It's a two gamer. Like any of these guys can do well. Not a huge favorite. I'm excited for it. It kind of feels like a wide open slate. All right, guys, that'll be it. Good luck. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the FSI website and check out the Discord through that. And that'll be it. See you guys in the next slate. Peace.